New week, new episode. Today, we are continuing with Why I Want, the series where we talk about 2024 NHL Draft prospects, and instead of going with the nepotism route like we have been going over the past little while, last week we catered to the Red Wings fans and talked about Zetterberg's second cousin, the other week we talked about Lane Hudson's younger brother, and then a few weeks ago we had talked about a Pettersson as well. Today we are talking about one of the guys who is projected to go at the top of the draft, so not necessarily any particular team here being targeted. Instead, we are straight up just talking about one of the guys whose names you'll probably hear get taken first. And for good reason, too, because today's conversation of the 2024 draft prospects is going over a guy that's debatably the best defenseman in the draft. In the eyes of some, he is, and the purpose, of course, for this series is to fill you in with the information that you could use to form your own opinions as to whether or not you think these prospects are that good. So today, we are talking about one of the consolidated top guys of this year's draft, Artyom Levshunov, playing at a Michigan State University in the NCAA. Now, first things first, yeah, you're seeing the profile right. Levshunov is from Belarus. He was born in Belarus, but has not gone through the traditional development program that most Belarusian players go through. He's a 6'2", 209-pound right-handed defenseman who, last year, was playing for the USHL's Green Bay Gamblers. He had 42 points in 62 games played, again, as an underage defenseman, and this season playing for the Michigan State University Spartans in the NCAA, the draft-eligible defenseman is at a point per game. He did have some extended development throughout his younger days in Belarus, but for the most part, I think the biggest selection of his North American draft stock has been based off of his season this year and the season last year. So Levshunov is indeed a producing right-handed defenseman in the college scene right now. His consolidated ranking, if you take a look at elite prospects, is 4th overall. That's like kind of the average of all these scouting outlets over here. The highest outlet listed here on Elite Prospects is Chris Peters of Flow Hockey, who have him at number 2. And then there are other outlets like TSN About McKenzie and ISS Hockey, Bukala from Sportsnet. Some of these have him at number 3. Then there are other outlets that have him at number 4, like Craig Button, Elite Prospects, The Hockey News, you've got Kennedy over there, and then there are some other outlets that have him at number 5. Long story short, Artyom Levshunov is probably going to be a really highly ranked prospect, and I only say probably because some outlets like The Hockey News, Tony Ferrari, they have him at number 20. Other outlets like Recruit Scouting have him at number 10, Dobber Prospects has him at 9, so it's not guaranteed that he is a top-of-the-crop guy, but it's a lot more likely than it is unlikely. I mean, many of these reports have him as the best defender, the second best player in the draft behind Macklin, Celebrini, and all it takes really is to just look at the production and then look at some of the scouting reports. So of course, being a point-per-game player in the NCAA at just 18 years old is great enough. Add on the fact that he is a right-handed defenseman and he is big, plus the way that he's able to play the game. Let's go out there and take a look at some of these scouting reports here. David Sod of Dobber Prospects wrote that Levshunov is a natural triple-threat player. He's able to punish opposing defenses with his great mobility, playmaking, and shot. The former two being particular strengths in his game, Levshunov is simply fantastic on the puck. However, what's made him so successful at the collegiate level has to be his athletic IQ. Stephen Ellis on Daily Faceoff said that Levshunov started the year off playing against some mid-pack competition, but he was still one of the team's top players in a 2-game set with Boston College in late October. There's still some questions about his decision-making, both with and without the puck, similar to David Reinbacher last year, but the raw talent is evident. Scott Wheeler said that Levshunov is a smooth skater with plus-level 4-way mobility and good length. Though he was a little green defensively when he arrived in the USHL, he made fast progress and really figured it out last year, which included becoming a top penalty killer as the season progressed after not starting in that position. And his ceiling defensively is sky-high with the right development. He's a heady passer and a carrier who can comfortably lead exits and entries. And then you have Corey Pronman, who went out there and said that Levshunov is a very creative defenseman who can make tough plays at an NHL tempo and has a good point shot. His defending is fine, but not at the same level as his offense despite his large frame. He started out his college season very well, playing big minutes for Michigan State. You also had yourselves an article published on NHL.com. This was talking about the podcast episode of the NHL Draft Class show. Levshunov is the most complete package for a defenseman, as discussed on the NHL Draft Class podcast. This was from earlier in January. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go ahead and read this. There are some quotes made by NHL Central Scouting Vice President Dan Marr, saying that the defenseman could be the most NHL-ready player out of the 2024 class. He is the most complete package for a defenseman. He's just a beast physically. He's got the right kind of confidence. He's not cocky. He's just really motivated. I spent a lot of time with Artyom earlier in the year, and every game now at Michigan State, you're talking about 50-plus NHL personnel. The game I was there, I walked around, did a head count, and there were 56 NHL scouts that included 2 GMs. He's really got a lot of people talking about him. And when you watch a lot of the tape, many of these sentiments pretty much bleed in the screen when you take a look at how he is, that he's able to move around in the offensive zone. His mobility always is very strong. He can start, stop, go left, go right, up and down, and control the puck pretty well too. Not to mention his hockey IQ and his passing. It's all very superb. He makes some really good passes, which is contributing to his great point production this season. And heading into the next few years, I mean, you want to talk about the physical maturity, the mental maturity, his strange development path, and everything in between. This seems like a unicorn of a hockey player when you talk about what he is right now and what he could be. To help us out even further, I wanted to refer to a comment made by Will Scouching on the most recent episode of Scouching Live. Now, I'm pretty sure y'all are familiar with Scouching. It's awesome to see that he actually returned to the YouTube scene, but Scouching on the recent stream talking about the Detroit Red Wings went out there and said this about Artyom Levshunov partway through the show. I think he's sort of like the modern reincarnation of Dion Phaneuf in a way, where he skates like Dion Phaneuf, he's out there skating like a linebacker in football, he's a super physical guy. I think he's a pretty good sort of small distance passer, and he's got good vision that way. He's been much more of a sort of two-way impact guy. There are troubling things with Levshunov, but things that I don't think you should be super concerned about. It's more of a situation where you gotta be patient and bring him along with time. And the NHL's gonna be hard for him. I think it's gonna be hard for him playing the way he's playing, but I think it's entirely possible that he's a solid NHL defenseman. But I don't know if that rover style is really gonna work for him at the next level. And what I really like about these comments by Will, of course, it's Will himself, right? Like, he does some really good work, and I think most of us who are in the hockey prospect community know his value and know his work, but he does go out there and articulate some of the things that may hold him back. And that's one thing that I think needs to be talked about a little bit more, that when it comes to being a rover style, all situations kind of defenseman in the offensive zone, very few players in the NHL are capable of being that 100% of the time. Like Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Cale Makar, these guys come to mind, but what is that, like 3 defensemen out of however many hundred there are in the NHL? It's rare to see, but it has been a style that's treated him well in the NCAA thus far. And because of the physicality, because of the size, because of the way he's able to pretty much just let guys bounce off of him. Like, if he gets body checked, you rarely see him fall down, because other guys will just end up falling down instead. He's kind of like a bowling ball in some shifts, and whenever somebody goes over to him, those opponents are the pins. So seeing the comparison made to Dion Phaneuf, that's a very interesting one, because I think a lot of people might not remember from the earlier days of his career, but Dion Phaneuf was a very good top pairing defenseman. I mean, he was a top 10 pick in 03 for a reason, so for Dion, I mean, he maxed out at 60 points in a season, playing with the Calgary Flames in 07-08, so maybe there is some reason to believe that this profile exists here in Levshunov. So if this happens to be the case, and Levshunov becomes this, let's say, top 4, top pairing, somewhat physical guy who can play good minutes and maybe get up to 50-60 points a year whilst commanding that blue line in the offensive zone, let me know your thoughts in the comments as to when you think your team should consider drafting this guy. Is he a top 5 player in your mind? Or do you wait a little bit more, like some of the other scouting outlets, and try to think about him only after like 7th or 8th overall? Or do you believe more so in the other outlets that say he could be a top 3 pick? Thoughts in the comment section below about Artyom Levshunov, the Belarusian right-handed defenseman beast, who is available in this year's 2024 entry draft. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.